recording the interview of James W. Selmer. This interview is being conducted by Wallace Crabb from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Holiday Inn at 2800 Presidential Drive, Fairborn, Ohio. It is 7:36 p.m. on October 19th, 2019. So we'll start off. When and where were you born?
I was born in Portland, Oregon in 1944, June 7th, 1944. And my parents, they worked at the shipyard there at Longview, Washington, and I was born in Portland, Oregon. And they were both born and raised in Minnesota. And my dad, I guess, kept harping that he wanted to come back to Minnesota to be a farmer. And he said, his dad would help him out. And so then when my sister was born, we all moved back to Minnesota. And then I don't know what they were. I guess they worked for Federal Cartridge in Anoka, Minnesota. And then somewhere along the line, they got divorced. And through the years, they were divorced. It was just my mother, and it seemed like it was just me and my sister, and struggling. And then this one guy came along and said, "Hey," he talked her into moving up to International Falls. So there's so tough times up there, Ray, Minnesota, and I was out of school for a year there for all the transferring and moving stuff. And I said, I want to get back at school. So I graduated from International Falls, and then I went to work at. I went to Hibbing for automotive tech, and I got a job at Midway Ford in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they were working at the arsenal, my sister and my mom, and they were making a little more money. So I quit that, and went to work at the arsenal, making M16 shells, M14 shells. And then I lost my deferment, and the draft board came along and said they were drafted. This was in July 1967. So I got drafted, and then I went down to the federal building and went down there to report for the draft, and went through the physical and everything else. They said, "Okay, go home and we'll call you." So I went home, and here I got a phone call, and he says, "Hey, we'd like to you scored really high on your test. We'd like to have you join the Army Security Agency. We'll send you to school for a year, but you have to go from 2 years to 4 years. Would you like to do that?" And I thought to myself, well, if I say no, in a couple of months I'm going to be walking through the swamps in Vietnam with a rifle, or I could be sitting in a classroom in Massachusetts for a year in a classroom. I said, okay. So off I went back to Fort Leonard Wood for basic training, and then to Fort Devens, Massachusetts for my year of schooling. And everything went real good. I got through this year of schooling, and then they sent me to Korea on the DMZ to Company 226, U.S. Army Security Agency on the island of Kamwado. And it's right next by the Han River estuary, about a mile from the North Korea. And then I went to school for a 33B20, which is basic electronics, and 33C20, which was intercepted equipment. So then I was a repairman on top of the mountain there, and it was all right. It was the temperature, the climate was just like Minnesota, colder than hell in the winter, hotter than hell in the summertime. And then the life was good. I sort of fell in, and it was pretty good. We had the NCO club there where the beers were 10 cents for OB beer, nice big bottle, nice big glass of beer, or 25-cent drinks, so CC Cokes, so whiskey sours, all of them 25 cents, or a hamburger 25 cents, or if you smoked, it was 15 cents for a pack of cigarettes. And life was good there. And anyway, there was times going up the mountain with ice storms and stuff. You don't know if you were going to make it or not. Sometimes they'd take the Jeep we'd get those big snowstorms, and they'd just take maybe haul 2 or 3 guys up the hill with a Jeep. That's the only thing that seemed to get through. Everything else was spinning the wheels and stuff up on top side, and everything was cruel. And anyway, one episode was up there was they had what they called somebody's bright idea was getting this electric toilet, and that thing never did work. You had to take, and there was a big wrapper roll you had to take and push this thing and hold this till the temperature was up to this, and you weren't supposed to pee in it, and all this. Guys would not read the directions. Pretty thing that thing filled up, and pretty soon it started looking like a mountain. And then the boss, the sergeant in charge, Sergeant Humphrey, he come in. He said, "Hey, we got to get somebody to go out there and fix that and clean that." And they assigned it to a few people, and nobody wanted to go out there and do that. Oh. And anyway, they sent one poor soul out there, and another guy gave him 2 puller and a hammer and a screwdriver, and he come in. It was a hopeless case. That was all dropped, and everybody took a collection for a Korean to come up and go back to the old system, a 55-gallon barrel, and put diesel in it and threw it a sitting spot on top, and then they could burn that, take and burn it every week, I guess. But anyway, that's what the system went, and everybody went around. They went around with a hat, donations to pay for the poor Korean that had to go out there and do that. So everybody chipped in. There was no complaints about chipping in for that, and that took care of it for that winter. I was only there that winter, but that was enough. It was really, really cold. And on top of the mountain, you could look way over, and you could see this winding road. I never got to go over there to see that winding road, but every once in a while you see military trucks going on it. And the other options you'd see is the old. It seemed like there was always old Koreans that had those rickshaws on their back, and it seemed like there was never any timber or anything on the mountains or anything around there. No trees. There was always sort of alder brush, and they'd have that rickshaw that just filled on the back of their back, going down, using it for firewood to keep their houses and stuff. And one thing, the Korean food over there, I really liked. It was they had the kimchi, and every time you got drunk or whatever, you ate the kimchi, and it wasn't too bad, but the smell was really bad. And anyway, the other was the ramen noodles. Oh, they were really good. I liked ramen noodles, and the food the food was always good. Everything got there was it seems like there's no problems. Everything got along really well. We never did a shot at anybody or anything, but I guess some of the guys you could say look over to North Korea, and they had these tunnels inside the mountains, and they had cannons or whatever on railroad tracks. They'd haul them out every once in a while and line us up to make sure that if anything ever happened, they'd have a good shot at us. And if anything ever did happen, we wouldn't have had a chance. There's no place to hide on that mountain. We'd have got all blown to smithereens. There would have never been nothing left. But anyway, after about 13 months, I got shipped out. I had to go, and I had my next duty spot was Japan, the island of Hokkaido in northern Japan, Satoshi, and that was the same routine as Korea, but it was everything was a lot nicer. It was sort of everything more modern, and the Army food was always good, and life was always seemed to be, but you had to do your job and stuff. It's like anything else. You had to follow orders and do your job, and if you did that, you had no problems, and everything was good. When I was there, and I bought a motorcycle from somebody that went. He was there, and this guy was going to leave. He's going what they call rod. He was going rod, and he's going to be leaving in just a few days. He paid $580 for a 350 Honda motorcycle, and he used it since spring, about 4 months. and then he sold it to me for $400. So when I got ready to leave, what happened? The government closed the base. They turned everything over to the Japanese, and they came in. What we were doing with our fatigues, they came in with suits and ties, just took over, and just everything got upgraded. And they were all in suits and ties and doing our jobs, and we got shipped out. I shipped that motorcycle to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, for $150. I think that's what the freight was. And then when I went back to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, I picked that up, and I ended up. The remaining years of my Army life wasn't the greatest. I ended up being an instructor at Fort Devens, teaching electronics, limited clippers and sawtooth generators and all that kind of stuff. But what I didn't like was I was back in my dress greens, and I had to have polished shoes on, and there was no houseboy to pay to do it for you. It was all you're doing. And then I finally got myself out of the Army, and they called up and asked if I wanted to re-up, and I told them I wanted to get back into civilian life. And they offered me a nice chunk of money. I think it was around $10,000 to re-up, because the government spends so damn much money on your security clearance. I remember when I first got in and I came back on leave, everybody's, what the heck did happen to you? What did you do or whatever? Here the FBI was checked my whole background, even asked the school bus driver what kind of a kid I was on the school bus, and asking the teachers in school and everybody else. Everybody's thinking, geez, what did he do? Rob a bank or something? And anyway, I must have passed everything, because I got in the Army Security Agency. And then when I did get out of the service, that clearance did help, because I went back. I went to work for Control Data, and I worked on the M1 bomber, testing film memories for the M1 bomber. And today I was just over doing the walkthrough of the airport museum over here, and I got to see the M1 bomber that I actually was a piece of. I did my little decal thing of checking film memories for the M1 bomber. If I didn't have that clearance from being on the top of the mountain in Korea out on the Kanwa-do, that would have never happened. But after that, I went back to school, and I went to I went to school for Anoka Tech in Minnesota, and I got electrical construction electric. And then through the years, I've done a lot of stuff. I went up to Alaska and worked on the Aleutian Peninsula, and was a port engineer for Del Monte Corporation with Alaska Packers. And I did that for 5 years. And then I went fishing for 10 years at purse seine and beach seine on salmon, and I did electrical residential in the wintertime. I got my journeyman license, I got my master's license, and then as time went by, I got into the union and retired from the union, which was great, because out of local 292 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I got a good pension out of that, plus I got a good annuity, so for my retirement. I worked till I was 72 years old. Now I'm 75, so 3 years ago I retired from Egan Corporation. It was a really, really good company. They gave me $350 for going away retirement present, and I'm retired now, and it seems like I got more stuff to do now than when I was working. I got grandkids calling and stuff like that now, and how are we doing here on time?
Doing pretty good. So I got some questions, and we might jump around a little bit. But first thing I want to ask is, when you got drafted into the Army, how did you feel about that? Did you want to?
I really didn't want to go in the Army. I was trying to go in the Air Force. I went down and I tried to sign up for the Air Force, and they said, well, can you wait for 2 weeks? If you can, you're in the Air Force. And they were full at the time. So, and then all of a sudden I got the draft notice, and it was too late. I was in the Army then. So that's what happened there. But I didn't. My choice was not to go in the Army. I was going to go try and go into the Air Force, but it didn't work. I got the reason I did that is because I got notice from the draft board that they took my deferment away from being a deferred because I was working at Midway Ford, and that was essential to the government for essential work, and that was deferred. So what I did, I lost my deferment for that. So then I was back on the books for at the Selective Service Board, and they put me in to get drafted, and they drafted me so fast I didn't have the Air Force didn't have a chance to get me in the Air Force.
Wow. So you had actually wanted to join the Air Force. You tried joining the
military? After I got my draft notice. I mean, that Selective Service had put me back in the drawing for the Selective Service. I thought, well, I might as well go in the Air Force. That'd be a better deal. First of all, when I was doing that, I remember I went down there. There was Marines, and then there was a Air Force, and then the Navy. So I first walked down there. I walked into in the Marines, and they had a whole bunch of other guys in front of me. And I said, "What the heck with this?" So I turned around and went to the next one, and that was the Air Force. And there was two guys in there. There was nobody there, and they said, I asked them about joining, and they said that it's about 2 weeks out. If you could wait for 2 weeks, we can sign you up. It never happened. I got that draft notice. It seemed like right the next few days, all of a sudden, the Army's right down there now, and I had to go down and go down to the there. And, that was not too good.
So after you get drafted in the Army, you go to basic training.
Yep, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
How was basic training for you?
It was I was in pretty good shape. That was when you first go in. They have a test they give everybody, and it's 300 points. If you have that, that's basic training is 300 points. If you pass 300 points out of 500, and you're good then if you can pass. Well, anyway, I had 325 or something like that. But then I went through all that training for the next 8 weeks, I think it is. And anyway, when I tested, I belonged to the 425. I had 443 points out of 500 points. And if you got 425, they gave you a certificate that you belonged to the 425 club, because that meant you were in really good shape. And I was in good shape. And that's what happened. But the only other grudge I had was when I went to Fort Devens, waiting for school to start. You were on automatically. They were looking for people for their KPs, and I was on 18-hour KP, and I was on that for 2 weeks. It get you. You had to walk over. It seemed like you had to walk. You were walking over there at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was maybe it was earlier than that. It was really early, but you'd never get off till the mess hall was nice and clean at night, and it was about 8:30 at night. You finally got released. You get back to your bed. You were just dead tired, on your feet all day, and walking over there. There'd be other guys in front of you, and they had to hurry up, and they had the jobs picked out. And you pick out, the only thing left was pots and pans. And I got to start, I'd get over there and I'd be back in the pots and pans, way back in the corner. And pretty soon I started to like that, because everybody just left you alone. You had all these pots, you're never done. That pots and pan pile was always continuously getting piled more on there. And anyway, and I could hear the sergeant just yelling and screaming at the other guys, "You're not up, go have it," and just raising hell with the rest of the guys, and I'd be back there just doing my thing. And I remember breakfast would be done, and they'd send back the tray that had the crispy fried bacon, and I'd put that pan over here and every time I'd get cold water, wash my hands, reach over and get a nice look at that, nice crispy bacon eating it. You had all the little things you know how it goes in the Army. I remember when one guy was telling me that him and his buddy was laying they had these 2-decker housings where the bunks all across the front, and down below all the way across, and then they'd have your heating ducts on top. Anyway, they saw this heat. They saw the duty sergeant coming, so he hurried up and got on top of the heating duct, and his buddy ran out and the duty sergeant caught him, and he says, "What's your name?" And he said, "My name is XX." And that he was telling that his name. He's the guy that was hiding on top. He could hear that. He was telling him his name and was writing it down. And then when he crawled down, he went and told me, "Hey, his name is such and such. It's such. I'm so and so." Oh, okay. So they got the right name down. He was good, pulling a fast one on his buddy. Other than that, I had a good time with it, but it was all right. I never fired a shot. Nobody fired a shot at me. So everything went good while I was in. It could have turned out a lot worse. I seen a lot of my buddies. I was reading the Stars and Stripes, and this one kid that I rode the school bus every day to school. Here he went to that OCS school and went to Vietnam. He was a second lieutenant, and he stepped on a landmine, or anyway, he stepped on a mine, got killed, and they upped his rank to first lieutenant after he post ranked, gave him first lieutenant when he's dead. But that was terrible. I don't know what else you want me to say.
Well, your job when you finally finished all your training, you were like electrical maintenance? Or?
I was fixing equipment. I was fixing R390s and tape-to-tape reels and stuff like that you use. What the other guys in there, they were listeners. They were listening to enemy communications, and then they take and record anything that sounded like that was intelligent gathering, just gathering information so we could be. They had a saying, "Forewarned is forearmed." So if we knew what the enemy was doing, we had a better chance of surviving ourselves. So everybody had a job to do. So what else you want?
Well, all right. So you mentioned in Korea, you mentioned once you left Korea that you didn't have houseboys to do everything for you. What's a houseboy?
Okay, over there in Korea, we paid everybody. They had so many. When we had the barracks. In the barracks, your bed had to be made. The floors had to be cleaned. You did this, and then your boots had to be cleaned shined up every day for work. Anyway, and then your clothes had to be washed. So a houseboy was somebody that did all that stuff, and you paid them so much. Everybody chipped in and paid so much a week for the houseboy. It'd be a village guy that took care of that kind of stuff. So that's what a houseboy was. So when you're back in the States and you're doing all your stuff yourself, washing the clothes, shining your boots, doing all that stuff. And I gotta say one thing: those houseboys they did really good jobs. The money we paid for them was well spent, and they did a good job. I gotta say something. When I was all my times overseas, and I was in Japan and Korea, I felt more safe over there than walking the streets than you do right here. I live in Minneapolis, and there's somebody getting killed or shot seemed like every other day in the streets, and it's just terrible. But overseas, you feel a lot safer. I don't know why.
Yeah, I agree. I was in Japan for 3 years, and I thought it was.
Where you were? Where?
I was in Iwakuni. It was close to Hiroshima.
Oh, that's way south. I was on island Hokkaido. I drank a lot of OB beer. Yeah, Sapporo beer. I drank a lot of Sapporo beer when I was on the island. That was good stuff.
So what was your everyday like in either Korea or Japan?
Well, you do your duties, and then it's just like everybody else that's young. What excitement can I get into, And then you see what your buddies are doing, and going out and drinking. And one thing the food, I like that chicken fried rice and like in Korea, like in Japan, they made some really good chicken fried rice, and it's really cheap. And when I was in Korea in Japan, we went up and took one of the guys had a car, and and they drive on the other side of the street in Japan. We went to their national park, and it was really nice. And we stayed at a hotel, slept on the floor. They were called ryokans, and we slept on the floor in Japan, and we stayed overnight with them. I remember that there was one tourist trap at the park there. I was telling my buddy, and they had all these here tired bears, all these bear after bear, and I said I wanted to get one of them, and I said I'm going to see if I can get it cheaper from her. I'm going to ask her. And she said, I won't go. And then she says, real good English, I will not go lower. That's a firm price. That's what I want for the bear. She could hear. She understood English better than I did. And like jetamate is just a minute in Japan, and you heard that, haven't you? Jetamate. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Yeah, you heard that stuff.
Still remember that.
Skoshi. Hayako. Yeah. What else now?
So I'm wondering, you guys were on Kangwado, which was an island. Did you guys ever leave the island to go to mainland Korea?
Yeah, we did. We had, sometimes you hop on a courier going. They had daily trips to the main place, and I think it was at Kempo, Korea. They had to go there with the material they collected from their work, and so you could catch a ride. And we had to take landing crafts to go across back and forth. They had a landing craft, and because the bridge was not built when I was there, and they had to take a landing craft and then go on to town. But then I heard the story about one time one of the guys he was out drinking with another base is down the line. I don't know what, but the story was that he was going back, and he had the Jeep, and anyway, that's when he just drove on. Anyway, that's when they required everybody to back on the landing crafts from then on, because what he did, he got halfway across and he hit an ice floe, and it sounded like he just hit shore. He's drunk. He just throws it in reverse, and just it drives right off into the river, drowned. So from then on, the Army says no more driving on. You got to back on the landing craft so you can drive straight off. That's what that rule came from. Yeah. And what else?
Between Korea and Japan, which one did you like more?
Korea. I like Korea better.
Why?
There was it seemed like you didn't have any housework to do. You didn't do that. The only thing you had to do was your job on the top of the hill, and it seemed like everything else was your own time. Nobody cared what you looked like or how you had your khakis on all the time. It seemed like it forever. Your army coat. You didn't have to worry about what you looked like and stuff. You could anyway. Life was. It seemed like it was work. You go to the club, play cards, whatever you want to do, or if you had time off, you can go to Kimpo, whatever. But it seemed like time went by really fast, and it was a more relaxed life there. It seemed like.
Are there any times in Korea or Japan that I don't know any stories that really like? You remember really well?
No, I can remember. I can just remember some of the stuff that happens. I remember this one time. We had to go do some training, and when I was at Satoshi there, we had to do some training in town, or some military films we had to watch and stuff. And then the sergeant told the one guy, he says, if it's we had to work till 4:30, I think, or something like that. We had to work till 4:30, He says, if it's 3:30, you guys could just go take the day off, go back to the barracks. There's no use coming back here. So it got off about, let's say, about 3 o'clock, and the guy said, "Well, let's just run over and get something to drink, and take a break and get a drink, and then we'll call the sergeant, tell him that it'll be 3:30. Then they'll tell us to go to barracks." The one guy, he gets out of class, and he hurries up and runs and tells the sergeant, "Hey, we just got out of class," and all of a sudden, we're getting our drinks, and we look out the window. Here's a work truck showing up right outside the door. What the heck's going on? And he said the sergeant sent the work truck to pick us all up to bring us all back to work. And the guys start looking around. What the hell? And they look at this one guy who sort of bashful, putting away like, "What the hell did you call him for? What the heck's the matter with you?" He was on everybody's shit list because he should have just waited a while before calling him. There we all had to go back to work, and for the rest of the day, it was funny. I laughed. I thought that was so funny. I remember that. Now I remember the USO shows coming over there. Georgie Jessel, Toastmaster General, and Bob Wills, and where Bob Wills was king, he was over there playing. And then we had the USO show. The New Christy Minstrels came over there and played at the USO show. And I remember that, and I remember when I was in Korea, Bob Hope came over there with the Christmas show. And when I was when we never went, but there was the big doings was going on down at Kempo Air Force Base. They had a big Christmas show for because Bob Hope was there putting it on for everybody. It was good. It was good times. And over in Korea, we had they'd have traveling Korean shows that come to the club. I don't know we who chipped in for that or anything. We'd all come up there and they'd have the show come on, and then I was getting paid $125 a month, and then they'd sell you these chip books. You weren't supposed to use U.S. money there. We all had that funny money, and we had a chip book, and they'd let you have a chip book, and then before you could buy stuff at the NCO club and stuff till next month. Pay came along. My pay was $125 a month, and I was a Spec 4, and I don't know how much of it was for being overseas or being on the hill or whatever, but I wasn't getting that much. In basic training, I got $78 for the whole month for basic training when I first went in. But it raised up to $125 was better than nothing, you know. But that's a lot less than what it is nowadays. Well, how are we doing? Are we done now?
Well, I guess if you really want to be done, then we can just do a couple more questions. But I want to ask you how did you feel teaching people when you said you went back to the States, back to
Fort Devens, yeah, Fort Devens, Massachusetts. I was, I don't know, I probably wasn't the best instructor because I didn't know how to imply myself to get the information across with that I should have. But anyway, it worked out. I was sort of uncomfortable being an instructor, being in front of them and they're all looking at me and let's do this or do that. But other way, it worked its way out, you know. And other than that, it was all right.
So you pretty much did, when you got out of the Army, you pretty much had the same job as you did when you were...
Well, when I got out of the Army, I did, what did I do? Oh, I went back to work at that arsenal. And then they upgraded me as a ballistic technician. I tested bullets, the M16 and M14 bullets. I was firing them and different tests. I tested them at normal temperature at 125 degrees and minus 25 and 125, and fire so many of them and fire, and I wrote down the results. We had speed indicators, And then they had what they call out of pocket. That was if it lost its primer with out of so many shells, if going through the guns of so many, if it lost its primer came out, then they were all classed. That whole lot was classified for training only because they couldn't trust it going out on the live animal to go out to protect themselves with. But then I did that, and then I put in for controlled data, and I got a job doing that for the building an M1 bomber. Then I did what else? I went to work for my sister's boyfriend. He was putting in sewers, septic tanks, and drain fields. he got this one job, and we went out and did it. And the guy told him, "You're going up this Swallow Street, the first house on the left. It's a house getting built." Well, we did that, and he went to the wrong house. We put a sewer and septic tank in a sewer and drain field in the wrong house. And I got another job after that, and I was working for him, but he took that to court and everything else, and judge said, "He didn't tell you to put that in there. You did that on your own. He didn't have to pay for it. The homeowner never had to pay for it." But anyway, I got that one. Then I went to work for Shamrock Plastics in Minneapolis. I did that for a few years, and then I got that call and went up to Alaska, and then the rest of it I told you already what went on.
When you came, well, I guess that's when you got out of the Army, how was it going back home?
I took and jumped on my motorcycle and rode that 350 all the way across through the states from Massachusetts all the way through to Minnesota. I got into some rainstorms, and I thought, "Oh, this ain't the best idea I had." I put all my junk on the bus and sent it on the cardboard some boxes on the bus home. And then what I didn't have, I put most important stuff I think I had on my motorcycle. Anyway, I had some rough times going with rainstorms. I spent some time under bridges. And I remember one time I stayed at this one motel, and it was raining. I had it right outside the door, and here the guy was renting it out by the hour for proposition for coming and going for the hour for sex. Anyway, he was mad at me. He thought, "I could have made a lot more money on you last night." And here all night long, I thought I was worried about my motorcycle, somebody stealing it. I hear all this noise outside, all the cars going and coming and everything else. I thought somebody's stealing it. Up all night protecting my motorcycle, and heck, I lost more than he did on the deal. But other than that, I got home and everything turned out all right. But that's the way that life goes.
So you also jumped right back into work.
Well, I did a foolish thing there one time. I took that motorcycle and for a shortcut, I thought, well, I was going across the railroad tracks 3 times before I got home. That's when I was working for that guy that put in sewers and drain fields. And so I thought I got the bright idea to go down the railroad track with my motorcycle. And I went and I hit a farmer's crossing, and I flew through the air, and I woke up on the rail. I cracked 2 and broke 2, and I ended up in the hospital, Mercy Hospital, for a week and a half, and I was 6 weeks on my back at home. But after that, I sold a motorcycle after that. I haven't rode a motorcycle since.
So it was that bad.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of miles on motorcycles before that.
So, aside from this reunion, and I guess this organization, are you a member of any other veterans organizations?
No. Just this one here that I just joined because my friend told me about it. And I belong to a Lower and Hardy club where we meet each month to show Lower and Hardy movies. And sometimes they have Abbott and Costello or the Three Stooges or what's that other Groucho Marx movies. And then we have a dinner, and then it's a good time. I've been going that for many, many years. Other than that, that's the only two organizations.
This is your first time in this reunion?
Yeah.
How was it reuniting with people that were in the same place?
It was really good. I enjoyed it.
I guess you guys got a lot of stories to tell each other.
Oh yeah, a lot of stories.
So, is there anything that you learned in the Army that has really stuck with you or carried over into the civilian world? Maybe life lessons?
I don't know. I'm thinking. Sort of how to get along with people. Don't take and throw your weight around. Find out if what's going on first, and see what you can do to make everything work out instead of just ramrodding everything through and your way of thinking. There's everybody else. They got their thoughts too. I don't know anything else to say.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or that you want added to this interview?
No,
It doesn't
not
have to
really.
be related to the Army or maybe anything you'd like to learn.
I can't think of any. I'm trying to think. No, not that I can think of right off here. I'll be wasting your time just sitting here trying to think of something.
I feel like you got some more stories.
There might be, but they haven't clicked yet.
Alright, so maybe this will be our last one. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear or see this interview?
Do the best you can and think of the other guy once in a while. It's just like coming out here for this reunion today. On the trip out, I came from Minnesota, and I didn't want to go by airplane because it was about a 3-hour wait to get on the plane and all that monkeying around. So I just drove, and on the way here, I stopped at a rest stop on the way out, and this one guy hit me up. He said, he had a convincing story. He had 2 kids in the car, and he was out of gas, and gave me a sob story. So I gave him $10. And then as I was driving out to get going again, here I see him at another car giving another. So I figured I've been had. But then when I got to Dayton here, I had my nephew gave me directions how to get downtown and how to get here. But I got to Dayton, and it's following directions, and it says I was coming down this one road and went a wide, the left and the right. I took to the right, and I got completely lost. And I was monkeying around trying to figure out, and there was no gas stations, just sort of a industrial part of town there, nothing around. Then I drove down a ways, all of a sudden all these old houses and stuff. And finally finally I ended up at a Goodyear tire repair shop, and there was a little old lady with her dog in there, and she had a tire that they couldn't fix or whatever, and they were going to come back the next day or something. And he's telling her, well, you just have to keep the air in the tire, and then he was asking me what I wanted, and I told him, I said, I'm lost. I wanted to get some direction to this reunion, and I told him it's this holiday, and they started telling me how to do it and everything else, and then the sort of manager, another came, and all two guys and the little old lady, they're telling him, listen, I've been here all my life. I know exactly where he's got to go. And then she says, why don't he could just follow me over there. So, okay. So then I followed her over. She took me right to the front door. And it was about a half an hour of her running around all these. I told her that one road, this here 75, and I was coming down 75 in Dayton here, going south. On the other side, there was an accident, and there was traffic backed up all over, and they were trying to talk me into going north on 75 to get over to someplace else. And I said, well, that thing is plugged. But she took me all these back roads over to here, and I thought I was so grateful. I gave her $20. She didn't want to take it. She opened her door, and her dog jumped out. trying around. And she was trying her best to catch him. They said, "Here, I want to give you, honey, I want to give you 20. I don't want. I don't want you. I don't want." So when she was chasing her dog, I opened up her car door, put the $20 in there, and scooted in here into the hotel here, and that was it. Other than that, just do the best you can and don't try and take advantage of everybody.
That's a good message.
Yep.
All right. So that concludes our interview with James W. Selmer.
Yes, James W.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much.